Welcome, friends. I am so deeply glad that you are here joining us. And on this episode of Simply Sarah, we're going to bring Aaron Solomon of Wesley House in just a moment. But before I bring him in, I just want to ask you this question that's just been on my heart. In fact, when I had a conversation with a client yesterday, she was asking this question as well. How do you start a nonprofit? Or if you have one going, how do you take what you already have birthed and loved on to a whole new level, to a whole new place? All of us know somewhere deep inside of ourselves that giving it's sacred, it's creative, it's amazing. And so as we ponder these questions, I'm going to bring Aaron in. And Aaron, it is such a delight to see you this morning, to see you today. And I went to an Advent tea at the end of last year, and Aaron was the keynote speaker. And I sat riveted listening to you share as you talked about what's taking place at Wesley House. And so I just want to say welcome. And how did you get to where you are today, friend?
Well, first, let me just say thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm very excited to be here this morning with you. To your question, how did I get here? Man, so I am obviously in Knoxville, Tennessee, but I'm born and raised in Houston, Texas. Moved to Tennessee in 2016 to attend Maryville College in Maryville, Tennessee. Go Scots, if there's any Scots that will ever watch this. But I moved to Tennessee in 2016, played football for a few years, did my college career, was successful on campus, became student body president over Black Student Alliance, a senator in SGA before I became president. Through those 4 years, I was just anywhere and everywhere, let me say it that way. And truly the service portion, how did I get to the Wesley House? How did I get to where I am today? The service portion really started back in high school. I was already doing community service, and from where I'm from, Houston, Texas, Southwest Alief, Texas specifically, I lived in a very interesting part of town. And when I say interesting, it was not poverty, but it was low income. There were a large amount of the houseless population that lived in that city. I was living with my grandma, with my parents. We got kicked out of our house, unfortunately, and moved in with my grandmother. And in that time is when I started to learn, what it looks like to live in that kind of space, right? Of low income, unfortunately. And as I grew older, I knew there was one thing that I knew I wanted to do was I never wanted to live like that again when I got older.
Right.
But I also wanted to assist the people who did, and ensure that I could help them. So in college, I got blessed to be a part of a Bonner Scholarship, which was our community service scholarship. And through that scholarship, we had to do community service. And obviously my heart was there already. So I was serving in that capacity. With multiple different organizations, one specifically the Martin Luther King Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center in Alcoa, Tennessee. And I was there for all 4 years of school serving. I was their program director in the summer, where I helped put programs together for the students. Food option, food pantry for the houseless population. Doing the day-to-day activities with students, tutoring, academic tutoring, math, writing, reading, English. And that's where my heart grew even more. And I knew that once I graduated that I wanted to do something still in that realm. Unfortunately, though, I graduated in 2020, where COVID was now a thing, So at 21, graduating college and trying to navigate life in COVID was very rough. But through God's grace, I had been through a lot of different jobs after I graduated, just trying to find that fulfillment that I was looking for. So I had tried sales for multiple times because a lot of people told me I could talk, as you've heard me talk. But finally, in the middle of May of 2022, I got a phone call from one of my fraternity brothers, Craig Pickett, and he said, "Hey, man, there's this role at the Wesley House Community Center for Director of Church Partnerships. And as you know, Sarah, I am an ordained minister of the gospel, and I was like, oh, okay, tell me a little bit about it. And he was like, well, dude, literally you go talk to churches every day and you try to, just make sure that we have great relationships with them. And I said, okay, I'll look into that. And I did. And thank God that I did get the opportunity. And that's where I started at the Wesley House as director of church partnerships. So really all I did was just go and meet with pastors, meet with congregations, tell them about what we were doing at the Wesley House, very similar to what I did at the Adventee where we met, and just expressing to them what was going on in our community at the Wesley House, the surrounding community that we serve in Knoxville. And then 6 months later, our executive director comes to me and says, hey, I have an idea for your role. And they were talking about expansion of the role because the director of church partnerships was new. She told me that I was doing great at, communicating and stewarding partnerships and building relationships and going to these different presentations and talking about the Wesley House. She said, I want you to become the director of community partnerships. We're going to change your title. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
And she said, now you will be over all businesses, all churches, all civic organizations, partnering nonprofits, and you will be the person that stewards that relationship, creates new relationships, does fundraising. So now I add the fundraising aspect there as well. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing. So I've been in this role for now, probably right at 5 months. 5 months. So I've been at the Wesley House for about a year and a half. So it's been amazing, and I love the journey. I love what we're going through right now. So that's how I got here. I know that was the long-winded version, but that's how I got here to the Wesley House at this point.
And so, Aaron, part of what you do is the fundraising aspect. But before we get to that part, which when I heard you share the numbers, just took my breath away with how powerful things are happening. Why is it that you guys were fundraising? For people who don't know about Knoxville, the freeway went through, and when they put the freeway through years ago, decades ago, they were splitting up communities, particularly the African American community, other communities as well. But that one still to this day has been trying to find its feet in some ways, to come back and be as vibrant as it was prior to that. And so in this space, Wesley House has been around for over 115 years, I believe, longer. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about what were some of the needs? Why was it important to start fundraising in a different way?
Yeah, so the Wesley House, like you said, Wesley House has been around for 115 years. Just a quick background story. We started, obviously, I was not there 115 years ago, um, but we started there with just women and children, mothers and children.
Yes.
Women, the women at the time had to go to work. The children needed a place to be. So we started off with just childcare, and at that point, we saw that. It just expanded, right? We started with one niche, right, of women and children, and then that grows into more. That grows into wanting to help people make sure they have food for their children, make sure they have care and education, tutoring for their children. So we started there, and then we move into kind of the more modern times where we are now, right? And we're talking about food insecurity. We're talking about our house's population growing. We're talking about still women and children, but now families and children.
Yes.
And you're bringing in all these aspects of adoption and abuse and all these different things. And we want to make sure that we're doing a great job encompassing all of those things. I like to say, and I believe you've heard me say this, I like to say we are a one-stop shop for a lot of different,
Yes.
things. And for example, we have three major programs at the Wesley House. We have our emergent needs program, which is at food pantry. So it's whatever at the time is really impacting our community. We want to make sure we're attacking that. And right now
Yes.
is food insecurity. And then secondly, we have our youth development programming, which is all the education, all the summer programming during the fall as well. And then we have a senior program as well, our senior care program. And through that, we have 25 seniors that we take care of on a weekly basis to make sure that they are taken care of. They're dealing with social isolation from death of spouses, death of families, moving of children. all these different aspects that are affecting that community as well. And we started in the Knoxville community in Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and Beaumont. So
Yes.
115 years, that's where we started. And 16 years later, that's where we still are. And that
Yes.
is great because that is the community that we feel called to.
Mhm.
And that's why that fundraising piece is so important, right? We started the fundraising because we had to be able to fund the projects that we were doing, to fund our families getting the things and the commodities that they needed, like toiletries and deodorant and food for the food pantry, to
Yes.
keep the wheels going in the community. So that's why we started fundraising. It's unfortunately, we live in a world where we have to have income and money to take care of the things that we want to take care of. Like any other business, and in the nonprofit space, we're blessed. Makes it hard sometimes, but we're blessed to go and tell this story, and then we can see who wants to pour into that story and be a part of the journey that we're taking. So that's kind of how I would answer that question, is why we started fundraising.
And I would guess that the buildings that you were in were not brand new either. I'm thinking that there were some ADA qualifications that were probably important for you guys to come to that
Yep.
level of standard to provide access for everybody, but also safety for everybody, right? In that place as well. And those are not inexpensive things to have to do to older buildings.
Nope, not at all. You're talking about, we're going through our campaign now. You're talking about sprinkler systems. You're talking about
Yeah.
new updates of the flooring, right? The what's in the walls that we need to take care of. We've been in three different buildings, and the building that we were in now was a education school back in the day, in the early 1900s, mid 1900s, and it's been there. And we decided that we wanted to stay in our community, right? To stay in our community, we needed a building
Yes.
in our community. So we chose our executive director, prior to Kara Finger, our executive director now, said this is the building we want to go with. And instead of us moving out and trying to find a new building that would probably push us out of our community, we said,
Right.
why not invest in the building that we're in,
Yes.
and make those updates? And it's going great. It's going great. Can't wait to see the finished product. But yeah, we have to be in a place that's making sure, because there's future goals that we have as well, right? We want to become a licensed childcare program, where we potentially can have a nursery, right? Can potentially
Yes.
get certain funding from government, because right now, which is a blessing, right? Which is a blessing, and it's not to my own work; it's to our executive director, our chief development officer, and me, as a team. We don't get certain government funding because we're not licensed yet. So all the
Right.
funding we are getting is truly us going out in the community and telling this story about where we've been and where we're trying to go.
Mhm.
So it's been a blessing to see how many companies, how many organizations, how many donors have been involved in giving us the money to help us move forward and do the things that we're called to do in this community.
I think part of the reason why you have been so highly successful also is because of the integrity piece that runs through Wesley Center. The,
Yep.
the communities, people can stop by at any point. You're keeping numbers because corporations like to see numbers, right? They like to know
Yep.
how many are you impacting, and what's the difference it is making in the education for the students, and all those different kinds of pieces. And so through the years, there have been people who have been doing that kind of number crunching, so to
Mhm.
speak, with the heart, with the servant's heart, that would then turn into more funding that would come forward for the whole community. So as you were
Yeah.
speaking about this, there was a campaign that you guys set, I want to say about a year and a half ago, maybe.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little? I think it was Kara Finger also who was the person who's the helm of that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So prior to me getting there, our executive director, Kara Finger, she was talking to the board of directors about a capital campaign. This capital campaign would ensure that we got the building updates that we needed, right? Or start the
Right.
journey towards the building updates that we needed.
Yes.
And we are technically still in the silent phase, but at this point, I mean, I think we can talk about it. Is the goal was 2 million in 3 years,
Right.
to raise 2 million in 3 years. We are about a year and a half into that, and all thanks to God. that we have reached that goal, right? In a year and a half, right? And
Yes.
I applauded her. We had our team meeting not too long ago, and I applauded her because a lot of that work comes from her. She's doing the heavy lifting of going talk to the CEOs, CFOs, and having those conversations about this journey that we're taking. And we've been blessed with amazing partnerships in
Yes.
the community that have some big pool in the city and have been willing to pour into us. And we are now, our board of directors, amazingly, they're like, if we can do that, right? If we can do that in a year and a half, what can we
Yes.
do in the next year and a half, right? So
Right.
9 out of 10, that goal is going to be raised so that we can do even more. And we're blessed to
Yes.
be in the space where we have a team that's dedicated to that as much
Mhm.
as we are, as our executive director, Kara Finger, is. It's taken a journey, but
Yes.
it was a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, a lot of letters, a lot of giving, but it has worked out. It has been a blessing to see the work already being started, because the hope was we would start in 3 years, right? We would get the
Right.
money, then start in 3 years.
Yes.
But to see God do exceeding and abundantly all that we could ever ask or think, you're
Yes.
talking about doing it a year and a half into the
Right.
journey. So yeah, that's our campaign right now. And then we have multiple campaigns that come up here and there because we do have, as a nonprofit, we do have, our budget we got to stick to, right? So we have multiple campaigns. I create church campaigns. I create business campaigns to
Yes.
raise the 140 that I'm accountable for, right?
Mhm.
So we have many different campaigns that happen that people can pour into.
Yes.
Individual donors, our chief development officer, she does campaigns as well. So we have multiple different campaigns, but that big one is that capital campaign for that building.
And it's just so impressive that in half the time you were able to meet that
Yeah,
particular goal in a time when other people are saying, that it's just hard. And I'm not saying that that's not true for some people. So
yeah,
there are some things that Wesley House is doing and has done that has been able to make the timeline shift and change so quickly. And I think that that's part for our listeners is that idea of timelines, that we can take a piece of paper, look at a calendar, say these are our goals, and start putting them onto that goal, putting them on so that you start having dates attached to them. And I find that to be really, really helpful. But I
mhm,
also find it helpful to that timeline, that if things go much faster, that
mhm.
I'm willing to move in that faster pace. And if things take a bit longer, that I'm willing to slow down and not be anxious about it. The end is it's coming. The dreams and goals, I believe, that are in our heart that get us fired up, that get us excited are going to happen. It's just a matter of all the pieces falling into place, the unseen world moving all those pieces into a place of it happening, and to whether it's faster, exactly on time as I think it should be. Who am I to say
Right.
that, right? Or slower, that in that space, all of the things that are happening there are supposed to be, and that other people are coming alongside and developing and growing and building as well in that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you talk about the differences of having grown up in Houston and coming here and living in outside of Knoxville or in Knoxville, what are some of the similarities that you see and what are some of the differences? Because Knoxville is a smaller city. I think we're number 26 across the nation, right? Houston's going to be up, I think, in the teens. It's much larger. And so what are
Mhm.
some of the things that you notice similar, some differences that
Mm.
especially impact what the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, size plays a part of it, right? Because of the ability to find funding in different spaces, right? You
Right.
can, in Houston, Texas, you can find funding on every corner, at some form or fashion. And in Knoxville, it's a little bit more difficult. Things are more siloed a little bit. I think that's the word I want to use there. And that's one of the differences. One of the similarities is there is a heart for that community that is in need, right? There is
Yes.
a heart. Houston, I like to say, even though it's a big city, it's a close knit family as well.
Right.
And Knoxville has the same kind of vibe. It's a smaller city, but it's very close knit. When I moved here, everybody knows everybody. That's the one thing that I am learning. Um, Everybody knows everybody, and they have the heart to help people,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things that I love. That's one of the things that that when people are connecting, they are wanting to connect to improve other people's lives. So
Yes.
that's one of the main similarities that I see. It's hard to say there's a lot of similarity just because there is so much different in the
Mhm.
capacity of Houston versus Knoxville.
Great.
Diversity, right? Diversity is a
Yes.
very, very different, thing going on here compared to Houston. Houston's a
Mhm.
very, very, very diverse city. We like to call it a melting pot, right?
Right.
Knoxville is not as much,
Yeah.
but I can see that there are pockets here and there that people are trying to
Mhm.
get to that space of being a melting pot and coming together as one and wanting to move forward
Yes.
together. For me, when I moved to Knoxville, one of the things that I learned in Houston and from my parents was, and one thing I told myself is if I can make it in Knoxville, Tennessee, I feel like I can make it anywhere.
True.
And just being respectfully as a black man, right? And it's been a great journey to see that everything that I learned in Houston as a big city. I think this is the great thing. Living in Houston, Texas, you learn a lot living in a big city. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit easier, at least for me, it was a little easier to kind of dwindle down a little bit and come to a smaller city. And then because I think I'm able to, navigate different spaces very well.
Yes.
So yeah, those I would say the similarities has to be the heart for people, the heart to
Mhm.
be connected to other individuals that want to help someone else.
Yes.
And then the difference is just really that size and the ability to find funding and the ability to find resources. You just kind of got to do a little bit more work in a smaller city than you have to do in a bigger city. So those are the things that I would point out.
I do think I've loved everything that you've said. I think that in both situations, um, you talked about how there's money on every street corner that you can ask for in Houston and in Knoxville. There's more of that silo. I think in both situations, it has to do with relationships and it has to do still with who you know. It still
Mm-hmm.
has to do, even in a large city, when I was living in Los Angeles, it still had to do with who did I know and were they willing for me to say, hey, I know Lori Paley. And so
Yeah.
therefore, can I, Lori, will you introduce me to, or, can I use your name when I speak with so and so? So kind of getting that permission, that greasing the skids, I guess is a way of saying it. But it's still about people, it's still about community, and it's still about storytelling. I think
Yep.
that the number one way that we are able to share um, impact is through that power of storytelling, whether that happens to be through videos or people telling their own stories or children, getting permission for children to tell their stories as well. Being able to use those, not from the sense that you're trying to pull on people's heartstrings and say, look at how bad it is, but from the point of
Yeah.
saying, we have an opportunity to change things and we know that we can, but we're asking for the building blocks to be able to do that. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. That's why I love my job so much.
Yes.
Because and really any job that deals with communications of a nonprofit, it could be a university, it could be a nonprofit like ourselves. Any nonprofit is my job. I get to literally tell a story every single day.
Mm.
I get to tell a story every single day, and I get to paint a picture every single day, and I get to just build relationships. And I like to say I brought a unique, with my role when I first started being new as director of church partnerships. I got to navigate how I did that. I really did. I got to navigate how I stewarded relationships. And it really came from, and I think a lot of people, not that they're doing it wrong whatsoever, but they could probably add this piece is start with the relationship first before starting with an ask.
Yes.
If you start with an ask, it's a little bit harder
Mhm.
to get it because they feel, even though we know businesses are like wanting to do this, and give out money for these causes,
Right.
it's important to build a relationship first. So I 100% agree. If we're not building relationships, we're not doing the work that we're called to doing because
Right.
our job is to build relationships, not just with businesses and organizations. It's to build
Right.
relationships with these children and their families in our houses
Yes.
population.
Yes.
And that's I thank you for saying the integrity piece of the Wesley House is we don't ever want to fall away from what we truly started with, right? Um, which is relationship building, which is making sure that they can trust us with their children, trust us with their lives, trust us with being able to serve them in a consistent way. And
Yes.
it all starts with relationships. You can't do anything without a relationship in
Right.
some form or fashion. So I would 100% agree.
And about those relationships, I really appreciate that Wesley House has built in time for everybody to take a
Yep.
break. It's like a
Yep.
2 week breaker, so I could be wrong about the length of time. But
Yeah.
in preparation for that, to make sure that every person who comes to pick up food knows that they need to take food for the next 2 weeks, that it's going to be closed, right? And
Yeah.
so it's building that fidelity, that trust inside of the full community to say the people who work here need time to be able to be with their families and go away or do whatever, right? And the
Yeah.
people who are here, that there's a need that we've recognized, we're not going to leave you without. We're going to
Yep.
make sure that we have poured into you and that you are aware, and that we'll be back on this date. There'll be food on
Mhm.
the shelves on this date, but during this time, please take what you need so that you are okay while everyone else, which then also gives the people who are on staff an opportunity to truly be able
Yep.
to be present with themselves and their families. I think that is something that sets Wesley House truly apart.
Yeah, when I started in May of 2022, and I heard a little bit because they were, through training, giving us the understanding or giving me the understanding of our breaks and holidays, and
Mhm.
I had come from the sales space. I came from a culture where it's grinding. You're just grinding, grinding, and
Right.
um, holidays I was working, holidays I was doing something for work, and they told me that in December and Thanksgiving that we get pretty much half the week of Thanksgiving off after Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, New Year's, we get 2 weeks off. You take and we leave the week before Christmas, and then we don't come back until the first week of January.
Right.
Well, to the latter half week of January, or almost the second week of January. And for me, right, I'm like, this is cool because for 2 years I haven't had that experience. I was working. I wasn't able to go home to Houston with my family. I wasn't able to visit them for the big holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that would hurt. But we truly care. Now that I'm a part of the leadership team, we truly care about our staff because we do have counselors. We have so our counselors are college, mostly college students, and individuals who are on are helping to pay for other bills and stuff. They have to do with their families. They have to have the opportunity to go home as well if they're traveling to a different city of where they're from, and we want to ensure that they're taken care of as well because that would not be fair if everyone in the holiday season gets a break except our staff.
Right.
And it would be wrong for us to do that. So we are grateful that our executive director, because this was a new initiative like a year and a half ago,
Wow.
she was like, "Hey, like I'm going to make sure my staff and our employees are getting taken care of as well because we can't." One of the things that I like to say is, um, well, again, being a preacher, love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself, and it's true. It's a true statement. If you can't love yourself, it's hard to love your neighbor. And
It's
if you can't
true.
take care of yourself, you
Yeah.
can't take care of your neighbor. So we do that very, very well, and it's amazing to be a part of an organization and a part of a leadership team that ensures that not just our community is taken care of that we serve, but also our staff. Because if they're taken care of, they can take care of our community,
Yes.
and that's how we want to look at it at all times.
I've been watching some videos about people who have been digging wells. My parents worked on clean water projects in Congo, but we had rivers and streams that were running through, so we were building dams, right, to be able to pump the water up to the villages. Um, so this is a whole different way. And we've been supporting for a number of years Charity Water, which is for $30 a month they go around the world. They're digging wells for people, and so
Mhm.
I've been curious, and so watching this process of digging the wells, they have days and days of just mud until they
Mhm.
finally get low enough to pull the water up. And then
Yeah.
after, when the water begins to flow, it's just a phenomenal thing to watch. But when you talk about gifting people, building into an organization's psyche that we care for everybody, not just the people who come to the door who have a need. We are going to care for the people who are inside, who've been doing all of the work to make sure that everybody's taken care of. That concept, that idea is saying we know that if your well runs dry as the person who's working, that you get
Mm-hmm.
down to the mud. You're not
Mm-hmm.
gifting from the water, you're gifting from the mud.
Yeah.
And it's hard. But if everybody gets that time to be able to know that they are valued and then
Yeah.
choose to do what you want to during that time, right? To be able to fill that back up, people come back together with a renewed sense of being, a renewed sense of hope, even if they, even for the times in my life where I've just stayed home and not gone anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that time of turning everything off and just being able to, for me, garden has just been so restorative
Yeah.
in such a deep, deep way. And so for that to be written in and part of the psyche of the organization, I think that that speaks volumes for the next generations to come of people who will work at Wesley House and those who also come who are learning just by watching what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. It really pushes on the fact, and I don't want us to go. I'm letting you lead us, but one of the things that I was thinking of as you were talking about that is burnout, right?
Yes,
Burnout is a real thing,
it is.
especially in the nonprofit realm. Burnout
Yes.
can really become a thing because our hearts are so intrigued and loving and
Open.
caring for
Mhm.
and open for people that we can
Yes.
push and push and push and then not notice that we're not taking care of ourselves.
Right.
When I was going through my ordination classes and ministry classes, my brother told me one of the things he told me over and over and over, and I take this with me everywhere I go, is your cup runneth over, right? That's what the scriptures say. Your cup runneth over.
Right.
Let my cup runneth over. He said the cup portion, right? If I look at my cup,
Right.
the portion is for me. This is me,
Ah,
right? The runneth
yes.
over piece, the runneth
Yes.
over piece is for the individuals that I need to serve and I'm called to serve. And
That's right.
that was something that I take with me every single day. I have to make sure, not only as a bivocational individual, right, as somebody who
Right.
works in nonprofit sector, but also works in ministry, I have to be full. Because if
Yes.
I'm not full, I can't do fully the work God is calling me to do
Right.
in my community that I serve with the Wesley House, but also the community I serve in ministry as well. So your cup has to run over. Your cup has to be full
Yes.
and it has to run over so that you can get that run over to the people that you serve. So,
Wow. Thank your brother for that
yeah,
visualization because I will carry that with me the rest of my life. That is so
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
That filling up the cup, that's for you. It is. It is for you. And the running
yeah,
over part is for everybody else whose lives you touch and bump into and see and people you know and don't know. That's where that
yeah.
comes from. So is Wesley House something that is open 5 days a week? Because I know that part of the component is for children, but you
Yep.
also have this component for the elders.
Mhm.
And so is it a 7 day a week program? And what do you, where are you guys in that process now?
Yeah, so we are a 5 day program, 5 day business, open up Monday through Friday, and we're typically 7:30 to 5:30. Our food pantry is open at 7:30. We're open. Well, the whole entire building opens at 7:30, but our kids for the fall
Uh,
and the spring semesters of school, they are there pretty much from about 2:30 to 5:30 at the latest, and our food pantry closes at 4:30 every day. So we are open 5 days a week. Fridays, just for example, with our seniors, right? We always take care of our seniors. Anytime they call us, we're going to be there.
yes.
But specifically on Fridays is what we consider our senior care days, right? So we will go pick them up on buses. We'll bring them back to the Wesley House, have bingo, have one of our partners, one of our church partners, one of our businesses serve them lunch, play bingo with them, give them commodities and gifts for them to take home, and
Yes.
then we'll take them back where they need to go. And then, of course, we do the one offs. If we have a field trip for them for the seniors, we'll take them somewhere. They went to a dinner show this last year in Sevierville, and they enjoyed that. So we got them
Mhm.
on buses again and took them out there. Um, And then, of course, again, the kids are every day. We see them every day, for after school programming for their parents to make sure that their parents are working and able to, then come pick them up at 5:30.
Yes.
So it's we're open every day. We're open Monday through Friday, and then there's those times where we're open up on a Saturday if we need to for maybe like a food pantry event for our community, our house's community, or if we're doing a volunteer day. We have sometimes that we'll have volunteers come in on weekends as well.
One of the things that we began offering when I was still a teacher on a campus was making sure that the kids had their homework done if that's what the parents wanted. Now, some parents didn't want that. They wanted their kids to play hard and then come home and eat and
Yeah.
then work on homework, right? Is that something that you guys are also offering at Wesley House?
Yeah. So, for the most part, our families, they would love for their homework to be done, before they go home.
Yes,
Uh, Education has changed drastically these
so much.
days.
Yes,
So they would love for that, and that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to make sure that they have the educational, spiritual, and emotional in well-being. That's what we say in our mission and vision statement, right? And we want to make sure that their education piece is taken care of. So
yes,
we do the tutoring. We make sure their homework is done before they go home, because truly, let's be honest, if we're and it's not just the Wesley House. Let's be honest, if we're looking at any after school program in a
right.
community like ours,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that when they go home, they get opportunity to spend with their family. We want to make
Yes,
sure they get opportunity to spend with their kids and their
yes,
and their in their
yes,
family. And we
yes.
we do our best to make sure that
Mhm.
let's make sure their homework's done here. Let's make
Right.
sure that their homework's done here,
Mhm.
and then they can go and go home, be a kid, be a kid, with your parents, with your families, and
Yeah.
we thrive on that for the most part. Like I said, our families, they're like, yeah, help them with their homework, please, and
Mhm.
we'll do that. And then if we do have, for example, the spiritual component,
Yes.
we do, if a parent is like, hey, because we don't say you can't come here if you're not a Christian. We don't do that.
Right.
That's not
Right.
what we believe in. And they will come and they'll say, hey, we would like our children not to be a part of certain things, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Perfectly fine. Like that is
Yeah.
fine with us. We'll make sure that they have another program that they're working through,
Yes.
outside of any Christian activities that may be happening in the building. Because at the end of the day, our love is not just for Christians. Our love is for people in general,
Everyone. Yes.
and we want to make sure that we push that. So yeah.
Yes. And one of the things I did as a teacher to help that process for all the other teachers who are listening is that I created homework packets that they
Mm,
got the full packet for the week. And if they got through all of it in one night, so be it. The part that they
yep.
needed to do every single day was reading. There were a certain number of minutes, depending on what grade level I was teaching, that they needed
Yeah.
to read every single day. But those skills of working on their math skills and working on the other kinds of things that they needed to do, those
Yeah.
things, here's the packet. I don't care when you get it done. Just
Hmm.
I'm giving it out on Thursday, and or I guess I gave it out on, they got a full week to do it. And I would truly encourage them to not work on weekends to do. But if that's when the parents want to do it, then that's when the parents, the family has the autonomy to make the
Hmm.
decision about how they want to do and when they want to do that. And so, finding ways as teachers to say, yes, I'm going to honor the number of minutes that they're supposed to do outside the classroom, but find ways to make it be so that the family can choose the life that they want to and have the
Hmm.
time to be the flexibility to be
Yeah.
able to do sports or art or
Yeah.
whatever else that they want to do, go visit people, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, it made a huge difference in the stress level for the kids and the families when I switched over to not doing every night homework, but just here's the packet, get it signed,
Yeah.
get it done, get it signed, bring it back in on Wednesday. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's an awesome opportunity and our families love it. They really do. I think looking at what your example that you just used as a teacher is like families want to have the autonomy with their kids, right? And
yes,
and have the ability to
yes,
choose what it is that they want,
yes.
for their child. And truly, I mean, I spoke with who did I speak with? It was a while back. It was actually before I was at the Wesley House, and I spoke to someone about the good balance between school, fun, and anything else. Right? They need that balance. They need
Yes.
that balance. It is important. I mean, I got that as a kid. I want my
Mhm.
kids to have that, as children.
Right.
And it's important that they have that balance.
Mhm.
Important, obviously, education is very important on my list. You
Yes.
know, but it's true that they need to have the kid piece, right? The
Yes.
the child piece, the play piece, the athletic
Yes.
piece, art, music, whatever it is, creative minds, creative thinking that they want to do.
Yes.
So yes.
Yes. Wow. Well, as you're looking at where you are right now with Wesley House, this huge campaign that you guys have done, still in that kind of that silent space of not, you're not hearing all of the buzzsaws in the hallway yet. As you were looking forward, what are some of the next things that you personally are looking forward to in this process, in this new season?
Oh man, as in the Wesley House.
Sure, at Wesley House or life in general, because what I love also about you is that it's all intertwined, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you are
yeah,
able to turn it off,
yeah.
but who you are is what you are pouring into everything that you're working on.
Yeah. I am very excited. I like to say, I just went through a summit actually not too long ago. I This is going to be my best year ever. It was called the Best Year Ever Summit with one of the pastors that I listen to and I'm connected to. And for me, everything is connected in there, right? So career,
Yes.
ministry. I have my own young adult ministry and
Yes.
that is doing its own thing. I'm very excited for that to come back this last week of January. My marriage. I am now married. We talked about that. And I'm really excited. I'm in a learning place right now. Truly, like I'm really just in a learning space, learning how to be a husband, learning to grow in your career, learning to be a minister, learning to be a pastor, and leading young adults to Christ, right? So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to this. I'm specifically looking forward to the goal and the dream of the ministry portion, which is my entire life. I want to see how much um, God can put on me and I can handle well and I can steward well.
Yes.
It's going to be a busy year for sure. It's already started off that way. But I'm really excited to see where God takes me, not only at the Wesley House, but in ministry in Knoxville, in the world, in the country. Me and my wife, now that we are one, right, where we're going to go. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, that I don't know if I have any crazy specifics other than seeing the building after all the renovations,
Mhm.
seeing the young adult ministry, Anointed and Assigned Young Adults grow that I created, and then just seeing my marriage thrive. Being 25 and married is a task for sure, and truly it's unique to this my generation. And I'm excited to be an example. We pray about that every night, before we go to sleep, about being an example for young people, being an example for young marriages, young relationships, and that you can do it with God at the center and it still be great and fun and
Yes.
be righteous and holy through that. And really excited for that. Every time I talk about it, I start smiling because I'm like, I'm really married now.
Yeah.
Um, for the most part, I'm just excited to see all the different areas of my life
Mhm.
for God to touch and me to surrender it
Yeah.
to Him, truly surrender it to Him and see what He does with it, not what I do with it. So,
Mm.
I'm excited for a lot of things.
Ah, that's so beautiful. You use the word surrender, and I think that that's one that I personally have struggled with. Just it
Mm,
feels like a boot on the throat, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't think that that's what surrender really means. I don't think it is the waving the white flag of, okay, it's not necessarily a war
yeah,
terminology, although we do think of it,
right,
in certain ways that way as well. But I think of maybe surrendering, and this is just the visual I just got right now, is, driving we drove recently to North Carolina, and I'm just here to tell you that the roads are not straight. We are not in Kansas anymore. There is just, I think that the Native Americans just found the best ways to go through. And then
yeah,
as other people began to come west, that they began to use those trails as well. And they are the best ways to come through, but they are not straight. They're up the
yeah,
mountain, on the side of the mountain, down through, all the different kinds of things. And I think that maybe surrendering is a little bit of just continuing to adjust to what the road needs, to that requirement that's in front of, right? I might want to go straight, but if I go straight, I'm not going to make it to where we need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you using the word surrendering and then just kind of reflecting a little bit about what does that look like in this particular space and time. That idea of surrendering. I love
Yeah.
that. Are there other
Yes.
things that you would like to share with us?
Oh man. I don't know. Oh, that's a great question. Simply, if you want to get involved with Wesley House,
Yes.
you'll have the links, and you can pour in. There's donation links, there's program links, there's pictures and events that we do on the website. That's wesleyhouseknox.org.
Yes.
And then of course, if anyone is interested in connecting with me in general, they can have my contact information as well, my young adult ministry connection and information, and Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
At this point, my life, I really want to, if if I die, I want to make sure that I gave everything God told me to give.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I want to, and in this season of life, I have learned at 25, being before now, being very disobedient, being very non-surrendered, that's not the best way to live. This is
Yeah.
surrendered and disciplined, and every day, my theme of the year actually is, I have a theme of the year for me and for my ministry typically,
Beautiful.
which is resurgence through discipline.
Mm,
Um, and resurgence being that reawakening, right? That
yes.
restart, that bringing you to a new space. I like to say it's a resurgence through discipline,
Mm,
and the discipline portion. What I mean, why do I say resurgence through discipline? Is your only way you're going to truly get to where God wants you
mm,
is if you follow His will for your life.
yeah.
You follow His scriptures. You talk to Him. You let the prayer be a dialogue, not just you just talking, but Him talking.
Right.
And ultimately, I can't wait to see what God does with me with that. But the
Mhm,
ministry, the people who may listen to this, when we all truly come to an understanding that
mhm,
God's way is really the right way.
mhm,
It may be uncomfortable, it may be something we're not used to, but truly,
mhm.
God is going to do some amazing things, I believe, in 2024, like He's been doing in the past year, that we just have not realized because of the way
Yes.
that we've probably been living. So I just encourage anybody to just get in alignment, get in alignment with what God is saying to you about your life, and what is He calling you to do? Because if you're still here, every day I wake up, I say this: if we're still here, that means there's still a purpose. There's
Yes.
still a purpose for you. So yeah, that's what I want to share. Just
Mm,
be disciplined and be prepared for God to take you to new heights this year. So
yeah. Somebody recently talked about the word challenge. If you have a challenge in front of you, take out a few of those letters, and it's the
yeah,
word change. And so,
yeah,
allow the challenges, allow the things in front of us to give us an opportunity to look at things anew and decide how we
yeah,
want to invest or let go or change in that process. And I think I just found that to be something that was a really beautiful, beautiful play of words to be able to see that.
yeah,
So, Aaron, I just want
yeah,
to thank you so much for this time together, for you sharing the powerful things that are happening for the lives that are being changed. I don't know if you have a story that you want to share with us or not about, somebody's life who's being impacted. I know the last time that we talked that there was a lady who needed a
yeah,
ride to the hospital and that, you were like, yeah, I'm there. And just
yeah,
that truly the boots on the ground of making a difference in people's lives. We have time for a story if you have one to share.
yeah. I will share. I think I want to share the same one I shared at the Advent Tea. There was literally in December, I got a text message. Me and my executive director got a text message early in the morning one day, and it was one of our seniors, and she advised us that her daughter was in the hospital. She said, "Hey, my daughter's in the hospital with an infection to her leg. They're telling her all types of different things of what could happen, and loss of a leg, or things of that nature. And there's fear arising, right?" And my executive director, Kara, got the message first. And she was the initial one to go take our senior to the hospital to see her daughter. So Executive Director Kara, she takes our senior to see her daughter. And then I get a text message and she says, "Hey, would you please come to the hospital and pray and just kind of sit with us for a little bit?" And I said, "Hey, most definitely. Most definitely. I'm not going to turn that down. This is what I'm talking about when it says no matter what day of the week, we're going to be there."
Right. Right.
So she texted me. She said, "Hey, can you come visit?" And I said, "Yeah, most definitely." Went to the hospital, sat with her daughter, and prayed with her daughter. Let her daughter talk a little bit because what I learned was she was fearful, but she never expressed that she was fearful.
Mm.
Uh, and she started to speak. She started to cry, and I just sat and listened. I sat and listened because I believe the biggest blessing for us these days is to listen. And she was telling me a little bit about what's going on, and I prayed for her and encouraged her. And I was there for about an hour, just encouraging her to understand that God is the true one who has the last and final say. And I truly believe that her testimony is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And prayed for her, left, and that is, if you don't get anything from that story, I hope you get that what we do is bigger than just in our building. Um,
Yes.
what we do is bigger than just what we feel like doing.
Yes.
It's so much bigger than that. Again, the Bible says, "Whoever gives to the least of these is given to me."
Yes.
And that's what came out of Jesus's mouth, right? And we want to ensure that we do that every single day at the Wesley House.
Mhm.
We want to make sure that every single day that we come into work, we know that our purpose is to give what we can to serve the
Yes.
people, God's people, His children, and that's everyone. No matter if we agree or disagree, that's
Right.
everyone. And that's the story I would like to share there, and just
Mm.
let me know we're more than what we do in our building. We're the boots on the ground, like you said.
Yes. Yes.
We like to say it again, the hands and feet of Jesus Christ every single
Yes.
day. So
Every single day. And it comes, the Wesley, obviously Methodism comes from the Wesley family, but the boys were raised, John and Charles, with their father who was a pastor of sorts. But Susanna Wesley, the mom, was the one who made the difference, had so many children, not all of them lived to adulthood, which was just very typical back in hundreds of
yeah,
years ago. But in order for her to have time with God, she literally took her apron and put it over her head and sat in the corner, facing the corner, lived
yeah,
in a tiny, tiny place in England. And that was her way. And when the kids saw that the apron was over their head, there was not a space for them to have a conversation with her because she was having a conversation with God about life, about how to impact the kids, about the neighborhood, about all those things. And so I love that it started out with just women and children for the Wesley House, but that it's grown to so much more, and the immense impact that it's having in the Knoxville area and surrounding communities. So thank you so much, Erin, for taking this time, for being with us, for sharing from your heart and inspiring us. And I'm just so grateful.
Thank you for having me so much, Sarah. I appreciate you and your time.
Absolutely. And so it's been so good to be together, so good to share with you guys different things that are going on in our communities, things that people can do online, ways that people can have an impact, no matter where